So welcome back to another episode at Teanomix, where we help you optimize your life with tea. Now, before you actually get tea to your cup, a lot is actually happening behind the scenes. A lot of sweat, labor, love, dedication, actually a lot of hard work that the tea farmers have to endure. So in this episode, we're gonna do a quick dive on the 8 main production stages that occur before you even get to enjoy your cup of tea. Each step of the stage actually influences the final outcome of the product, the final quality. And hopefully by the end, you'll appreciate tea a lot more. And of course, show more love to all the tea farmers out there that are doing the unglamorous work just so you can enjoy your tea. All right, so starting from the origin, from where the tea begins, all the way to the very end, to how you actually package your tea. Every step of the way is influencing the aroma, the flavor, the quality. In general, all teas go through the same processing stages, except for green tea, which you will usually fix earlier on. So we'll touch on this later. So the first stage of the tea production is harvesting, also known as plucking. This is when the farmers go out there and manually handpick the tea leaves. What they take are the buds and the leaves from the shoots. And the farmers actually have to wait at 3 different times of the year before they can actually get to work. So the first window period is during spring, which is called the first flush. And this is when you get the younger tea leaves out there. Most tea leaves from this season are usually more fragrant, more delicate. The next window period will be summer, which is the second flush. And this is when you can actually harvest the more full-bodied and robust tea leaves. And then you have autumn, where you can harvest stronger teas like the black and Assam. So yeah, there's actually a very limited window period where you can actually go out there and harvest the tea. Usually what the farmers do is they collect 2 leaves and 1 bud. This is usually the protocol. And the leaves at the very top are actually used for green tea. Further down the shoot, let's say in the middle, are usually used for oolong. And then the leaves at the bottom, the more mature ones, are actually used for the darker teas. And usually the leaves from the lower parts of the shoot are actually easier to roll, and they're actually thicker as well since they're more mature. And that's the first part to the production stage. Going out there and just harvesting, plucking the leaves. And yeah, that entire process itself is already very tiring. Could take a long time. So yeah, hats off to all the tea farmers out there, and this is only just the start. So moving on to the second part of the production stage, which is withering. Now, withering or wilting is actually just reducing the moisture levels from the tea leaves. So you want to bring it down from around 75 to 55%. When you reduce the moisture, that's when you actually kickstart the enzymatic process to develop the aroma and flavor of the tea. Just think of it as starting the engine for the tea leaves to start growing into what they're supposed to become. So yeah, the leaves get laid out either indoor or outdoor. Usually it's better if it's done outdoors with solar withering. You'll actually get better flavor and aroma since it's more natural. And what the farmers do is they lay it out on bamboo trays or cloth mats for the tea leaves to just dry. This is a very important period. And then you also have the withering, which happens indoor, where let's say in the factory they can control the airflow, the humidity, and the temperature of the room. So yeah, there are different ways in which tea undergoes withering. It really depends on the supply chain and how fast you need the tea. It's during this stage where you actually activate the terpenoids. That's when you're getting the more floral and fruity hints that the tea provides. So terpenoid activation is happening here due to the enzymatic activity. If you actually skip this step, then that's when the tea actually falls flat on the notes. That's like having a singer sing without soul. So yeah, this is a very important step to the production. Think of it as marinating the meat before you actually go cook it. And then you have fixing. That's when you put the tea into the cooker to really lock into those notes, the flavor, the aroma, letting the tea undergo high temperatures to just freeze it in time. So you stop the enzymatic activities, because what that does is then age the tea. So depending on the tea type, you will have different temperatures and time in which it stays in the cooker. And there are different methods actually for this. Some, like the green tea, actually gets pan fried. The Chinese do it like that. The Japanese will steam their green tea. You can also bake or roast the tea itself, and this usually applies for the oolong and white tea. So once again, the fixing part is when you actually fix the flavor profile. So what happens when you start rolling the tea leaves is that you're breaking down the cell walls further. And when this happens, you're actually releasing more of the tea essential oils and juices. This then will help get tea ready for oxidation. And there are actually two methods which you can roll the tea: by hand, which is more artisanal, or you let the machines do the work, which then might, lower the quality a bit. There's both good and bad. I mean, with a machine, you actually get more uniformity and it's much easier to scale for the business. But when it comes to rolling, you're also shaping the tea at the same time. So as you know, a lot of tea has a different visual identity, a different look to them. For example, the green tea, dragon well, they're usually more flat. And then you have oolong teas, which are commonly rolled, twisted. And usually for black tea, you would crush, tear, or even curl them as well. So a lot of different shapes and forms which tea actually gets transformed into. As you are rolling the tea, you're again reinforcing the enzymatic activity, which then brings out more of the tea's essence. You also have needle-shaped tea, like the silver green tea, and then you have teas that are compressed as bricks or cakes, like the pu'er. So as you can see, there are a lot of different shapes and forms in which a tea plant can transform into, depending on their tea type. So how a tea actually looks actually affects how many infusions and brews you can actually get. When the tea is actually rolled, you're actually getting more infusion, since it'll actually take a longer time to unfurl. If you think about it, that's the reason why green tea are actually leaf shaped. You don't want too much activity happening with the leaves, so you can preserve its greenness and its freshness. And then you have the oolong tea, which are more tightly rolled, so they have a more complex flavor profile. And then you have pu'er tea, which are usually compressed, so then they can age a lot better. All right, so once the rolling and shaping, all that styling is done for the tea, that's when the tea continue into the oxidation phase. Now, this is also a very crucial stage to determine the kind of tea you're going to get. So this is the phase where tea chemically reacts with oxygen, and this is a very crucial phase since it actually determines the kind of tea you will get. So tea with no oxidation usually tastes more green and grassy. For example, the green tea. That's why they're the least oxidized, or not even at all. And then you have oolong tea, which are semi-oxidized, and black tea, which are fully oxidized. So the more oxidized the tea is, the stronger, robust, maltier the tea becomes. So as you can see, the oxidation process can really transform how a tea actually tastes. To quickly recap, the less oxidation, the more floral, grassy, bright the tea will become. And the more oxidized the tea is, the more dark, robust, and bold the tea is probably going to be. And moving on, we have the drying phase, which is when you actually reduce the moisture level again even more now. The goal is to actually keep the moisture level at around 5%. And the way that drying is accomplished is by either using hot air, the oven, which is a very common commercial practice, or even just sun drying it. And you can also roast the tea to actually create more depth to them. Usually the darker teas like Assam or black tea will undergo roasting. The most common would be to ovening. Again, the point of this process is to stop the oxidation process of the tea, to lock in the taste profile, to really preserve and stabilize the characteristics of the tea. Otherwise, the tea is going to be vulnerable to bacterial growth. Now, once you're done drying tea, that's when you start sorting and grading them. So this is where all the quality control happens. Usually tea is categorized into 3 different categories. The whole tea leaves are considered premium. The broken tea leaves are more mid-grade, and the dust, the fannings, become the dust. And that's the reason why when you buy tea bags, you're getting the lower grade tea. The contents inside those bags are usually just the leftovers, residues of the whole tea leaf. And the tea are also being sorted by its shape, its overall appearance. So yeah, this is all a very crucial step before the tea leaves are being sent for packaging. So how a tea actually appears at the very end will determine its market value and the price tag that it can fetch. Personally, when it comes to tea, I'd say don't discriminate. Take what you have. It's still tea. Just because it doesn't look pretty doesn't mean you can't drink it. Okay, don't let appearance deter you from appreciating what's already been harvested. And yeah, the last step is really the packaging and just storing the tea leaves for preservation, for freshness. So this is when the tea are kept in tea chests or cans, storage room where it's airproof, lightproof, moisture-proof. Packing the tea has to be done right so the tea does not spoil as it's being stored. If you're actually very careless with how you store your tea, then really you're just letting the tea go to waste. What you don't want is moldy tea. And that's why you want to prevent any kind of moisture or even oxygen from entering where you're storing your tea. The goal is to maintain the integrity and composition of the tea. How you store the tea and pack it isn't the only important part. Tea packaging is definitely very important in terms of sales, getting the customers to buy. But don't let that fool you. Nicer packaging doesn't always equal to nice tea. But if you were to ask me, I would say, yeah, tea deserves nicer packaging. It's like buying nicer clothes for the tea to wear, so they're more presentable. Okay, so that's why the design and packaging is also very important. So that's it. The 8 main production stages that tea undergoes before they become available to you. Hopefully you found this all very insightful, and again, we all have to be a lot more grateful for all the tea farmers out there being in the harsh climate, breaking their backs just so we can have access to these tea plants. That's all for this episode. I hope you found this one helpful, educational. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.